Good morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, dreamers? This is episode 8 of Coffee Break Daydreams, and it's a beautiful, cold, beautiful sunny morning here on February the 5th, 2022. So, nice to see you all again, and thank you for joining me on this crazy journey. One of the useful techniques if you're getting into dreaming is to keep a dream journal. And to be honest, that works to an extent for me. You know, in the past I've used it as a technique to kind of reinforce the memories of dreams. And you know, as soon as you wake up, you make bullet points on the piece of paper, you reach over in a semi-conscious state and try and set those memories to paper. But this is easier for me. Talking to you is more productive because I recognise that in the dreaming developmental process, there has to be, you know, the moving outwards, the growing outwards, and I feel like by reaching out to you, I'm doing precisely the same thing. So it's that energetic expansiveness that is better able. I feel better able to integrate dreams by connecting with you on the subject. So I have a couple of dreams I want to relay to you, which are both very different in flavour. The first one I had a couple of nights ago, and I was in a jungle, and it was quite dark, and it was quite swampy. There was a lot of low-lying water. And I was flying over it and was overjoyed to be flying over it. And I would sort of drop down and touch a toe on the water or a foot on the water and then kind of just jump up and be up again. So there's that kind of making contact in the same way. Energetically, I can't see a lot of difference between making contact with the water and making contact with you guys. And, you know, it felt good, it felt refreshing, it felt like touching base and then lifting up again. And there was this boathouse there, which had obviously been there for a long time, and it wasn't submerged in the water. It had been built on stilts. It'd been constructed in place, and then the water level had receded. But in any case, I flew up onto this boathouse and looked at the keel, and thought, right, you know, I'm going to angle my flight. I'm going to purposefully fly around this thing. I'm going to choose where I fly to, choose where I want to direct my energy. And yeah, that was a good experience. That was the first dream a couple of nights ago. Quite on a scale of, you know, vividness, it was probably about a 6 or a 7. So I could really have done with a bit more clarity there. But it was quite a relaxed sort of feeling, so that's okay. I was delighted enough that I'd been able to remember it. That the, you know, the premium quality flying dream that it wasn't was fine, because it was nice to remember. And the second dream, which I had last night, after a few drinks with the boys, was not so uplifting. I walked into a rather peculiar scenario where there was this very tight-knit family and they I think there was about 4 or 5 people in this family. It was, you know, not entirely clear, but they all of them, I think, had something seriously wrong with them, which meant that they weren't able to communicate effectively. Um, and in my own attempts to communicate with you, I could feel myself trying to push through that communication barrier and being held back from it. And I had this feeling I was trapped in this dynamic, and I wanted to move beyond it. So the way that manifested in the dream was that it became this kind of, rather than just being a small close knit family, it was like this island. I was on this island, and it was a sort of a cult, and I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be in this. I didn't want to be a part of that kind of restricted way of moving energy. It felt like a trap, and so I sought to escape, and there were 2 or 3 groups of these people who were all energetically interrelated, and they were all hunting me, which, you know, in the scheme of things, that happens quite a lot. I get a lot of dreams where I'm being chased or pursued or confined, and anyway, I made attempts to escape the island. I kind of hid in these, you know how hedgerows come up and you have the sort of bank underneath the hedgerow, so I would hide sort of Frodo fashion, while the groups of people with their searchlights were, you know, running around wondering where I'd gone. And at one point I remember dropping, there was this drop, there was this big, up on the other side of this hedge bank, there was this steep drop of about 60 feet, and there were these really tall trees with hardly any branches, that came from the bottom of that chasm and were tall enough that I could jump out. And I jumped out and I grabbed one of these trees in the hope that I could climb down and, you know, make swift my escape. And as it turned out, the tree that I grabbed onto was very flexible, and it kind of unceremoniously, I grabbed it and it kind of dropped me in this. It was this sort of elastic moment where the whole tree just bent down like that, and I was still holding the top, made contact roughly with the ground, and that was kind of it. That, I think I probably woke up shortly after that, but because of the fear aspect, again, as I've mentioned before, it can be useful as a trigger for remembering dreams. So I was pleased to be able to remember that one, and it was kind of exciting. You know, I mean, I do get a thrill out of these things. It's not, I'm not just doing this because I'm a little bit mad, though that may be true. It was more this feeling of excitement that I tapped into, and that was what stayed with me as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was that I had a phone call from a friend who I haven't heard from for a while, a couple of days ago, and the subject of dreaming came up, and he said he described this dream that he'd had where, you know, intense dream where he felt kind of overwhelmed by the level of, you know, sort of visual stimulation that was kind of rushing at him from all directions. I don't want to go into detail because it's his dream. It's his experience, but what it did do, that conversation, was it kind of reinforced my sense that I'm on the right path here. That that conversation in itself, it's great to catch up with him, but yeah, I spent, I suppose, about the rest of the day just feeling kind of uplifted by that. Yeah, and I suppose it's about tapping into the resonant quality. If you feel something a lot during the day, can you take those good feelings that you feel, and can you convert them into a story? Can you change them, or can you be changed by them, so that they, add a layer of kind of story or narrative depth to what you're going through? And I think that's a useful exercise. I think it's a useful discipline to, experience positive stuff, and then give it a reinforce it, stay with it. If you feel good about something, examine why, but don't disarm that good feeling. Don't destroy it. Don't put it away. Stick with it and enjoy it. So, yeah, I think that's pretty coherent. Then the other thing is about coherency in particular is when you're in a good place, when you're in a good mood, you're more likely to encounter situations which bolster that, which support it and reinforce it. It's called cognitive bias, and we do it all the time. So whatever your world belief, whatever your worldview, tends to be reinforced by your experiences. So if you can deliberately choose feeling states which are, kind of up a gear, up a level, up a notch, then those things bring about a kind of acceleration in your conscious potential to have further experiences of a similar quality or of a greater quality. And this is all baby steps. I'm not I'm trying to keep people feeling that they could do this easily, that it's not massively challenging. Okay, so on a last note, if you've watched this far, and hats off to you if you have, I appreciate it, and I think if you can leave a comment or a like, or if you want to subscribe to my series of films, you're very welcome to. All of that will continue to bolster my sense that I'm doing the right thing. But I recognise, that this is quite a solitary pursuit in its nature. So if I don't get the support that I hope for, I will just keep trying. But also, if you make it too easy for me, if everyone was saying, wow, this is great, then I don't know that I'd bother to do it, because it wouldn't be, it feels like it needs to be deliberate and a discipline, and it needs to have some difficulty. There needs to be some work involved, and it's part of the processing is to grow into, the person I want to be. Anyway, to be continued. Thanks for listening.